Hello everyone and welcome back to Genuine Chit Chat, the podcast where we help you grow through what you go through. Today I'm here with the incredible Belinda. She's now an author of her own book called WAG to Warrior. So in this episode we're going to find out all about what the book's about, why she wrote it, and how she sort of came from a really hard place and built herself up with a good mindset, good techniques, and by the end of this episode you're definitely going to want to buy the book because you're going to feel inspired. So yeah, let's get into it. So welcome back everyone. Belinda, you're finally on the podcast. How crazy is this?
Oh, I'm very excited for this today.
I mean, considering like this time a year ago, I was at your house and we were speaking about just setting my podcast up, and I was like, Bells, you're going to come on for an episode, and now we're actually here.
Here we are, and I've written my book.
I know how mental. And you know what? Because you've written your book, I've got you a little. I thought, why not? We can have a little glass of Prosecco.
Oh yes. I was just going to say, actually, I feel like we should have a glass of Prosecco.
Yeah, well, I just want to congratulate you on writing your book.
Thank you so much.
And we spoke about it for so long about, I mean, you gave me so much sort of confidence and sort of pushed me to actually start the podcast, because it's such a thing to say, oh, I'm going to start it, but you sort of made me...
And then have all your doubts and all your fears.
Yeah, you put my limiting beliefs to sleep, basically. So I feel like this is a little duo where we both were speaking about it this time a year ago, and now we've actually done it. So cheers. Let's get into it. Do you want to sort of briefly explain what the book's about and how you sort of got to that position where you thought, okay, I need to write a book about this and sort of just spread awareness to everyone?
Yes, of course. The book is part memoir and part personal development. It's an empowerment book for women. Initially, I set out to write a WAG survival guide due to the fact I was married to a high-profile professional footballer back in the day. And I realised the challenges that the wives and girlfriends face in that world. And I felt that there was a real need for guidance, and there's a gap that there isn't anybody, and that, you know, I know what it's like to silence my voice and hide behind a mask, and you know, just face the silent battles alone each day. And I know that the general public, I mean, I feel these girls are harshly judged at times. However, the WAG title doesn't cut it. It doesn't represent the women behind that label. But, you know, because of the privilege of being in that world, so many women are dimming their lights and playing small just to support their partner's dreams. So therefore, you know, they feel that, I know a lot of girls feel that they're lucky to be in that position. Therefore, they don't have a platform, and they don't have... They don't, as I say, they don't have a voice. Therefore, you know, I felt that because of the mistakes I made in that industry, coming from humble beginnings, you know, and then all of a sudden thrust into wealth, you know, it was like, as I say in my book, a dam had burst and it was raining money, you know, had no financial literacy.
But at the time, that must stand out. Like, if you've sort of come from a humble upbringing, but that, like you said, like a dam's burst, you instantly sort of just must have thought of that over everything else that was going to come with all of that as well.
In the beginning, no, I didn't, or we didn't, because my ex-husband was really, when I met him, he'd only really been professional for a couple of seasons. And it was something that seemed so far away. I mean, we looked at other people in that position, people that were older than us and who'd made it in that world, and you just don't know what's going to happen. So therefore, you have no real preparation for when it does happen. And when it does happen and you're not used to it, all of a sudden it's like crazy, you know. you don't have to worry about money for the first time in your life, and then you're able to spend on things that were once unattainable, and it's exciting and it's exhilarating, and so I want to educate the women that are coming into that world, not only to avoid the mistakes I made. I want to support them because it is very difficult being married to somebody that's in the spotlight, the pressures and the attention that they get, and the fact that, yes, there are stories in the press about players, footballers, in the main, infidelity, and of late the Wagatha story, Wagatha Christie story, isn't it? All that sort of thing. So people are very interested in that world, the same as actors, the same as pop stars. It's all on a par, and so there's so much public scrutiny and judgment. But I want to reinvent WAG, women achieving greatness. How much better does that sound?
That sounds so much better. Because like you said, I feel like WAGs are they are sort of looked at like they're just the side part of the relationship, that like they're not in the spotlight at all. They'll be in the spotlight when it comes to how they're looking or if they've done something wrong, which is so sad, because I mean, women get sort of picked on a lot for sort of things like that. But when you're a WAG and you're meant to be this sort of certain looking way or act in a certain way, that must feel so hard to be constantly under that pressure. And I think it's amazing that you're sort of wanted to change the whole term of that to women achieving greatness. Like I think that's so powerful in itself.
Yeah, I mean, in my day, the WAG title sort of came about with Victoria Beckham. So, but I was still considered a WAG, but I never really felt worthy of that title. I never felt that I was any different from anyone else, that I deserved any more than anyone else. I still felt, very grounded. And that money didn't change me as a person. And in fact, when I lost all the material gain that we had once upon a time, I think people thought it was going to crush me and I was going to just completely hit the floor. I did hit the floor, but not because I lost the money. It's because so much was going on at that time for me, and it was very, very daunting, and it was very soul destroying, because I've just lost my mum to cancer as well, and I walked out of my marriage, and I lost everything that was familiar to me. And I wasn't just grieving the loss of my mum, I was mourning the loss of my marriage, my identity, everything that I once knew, that all fell apart and everything crumbled. So therefore I, became homeless, and my car was repossessed. I didn't have any money in the bank. So that was the difficult part for me, because I felt very alone, especially with my mum not being in the world,
Yeah, because you must have felt like she was the sort of one you had full trust in, and you could sort of just let go of everything you were feeling inside and sort of not load it, but like load it onto her, which would make you feel better.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. She was my support, and she was my rock, 24/7, 365 days a year. And I don't know how I would have survived without my mum, to be honest with you. And that goes for during my marriage. Because I faced the challenges I did, she knew everything. So, and I had the 4 children, so she helped me. She was just always there. So when she passed away, it was as if my world fell apart because of that. The reason why the money didn't seem to, I always wondered why, what's going on here. But then I realised that it was where I felt I belonged. I was hardwired to struggle all my life. So being back there
It wasn't much of a shock.
familiar. It was familiar to me, and therefore it was like, okay, this is what I know.
Yeah.
And it felt, it didn't felt so bad in that way. It was just a battle, the divorce and everything. The rest was just, a hard slog.
That's kind of a blessing in disguise, that you didn't feel as bad going back to that, because that's sort of a way you grew up, you were used to that. And I feel like the title is so bold and strong of the book, From Wag to Warrior. And from what you're just explaining there, I feel like that's how you got from that, because you want to reframe it. But how did you initially come up with that idea that that's what you want to name the book as? Like, what do you want that to sort of represent?
Well, what I realised when I hooked up with some of the women from my era, all ex-WAGs now, we all had faced similar circumstances. Although we were different people, different backgrounds, we all had faced similar things. And as we got chatting, I could just hear myself in their stories. I could see myself in their stories. But then again, I thought, then it dawned on me, this isn't just our story. It's the story of women everywhere. That's how I opened it up to all women, because it doesn't matter where you are, where you come from. We've all felt the pain, the hurt. We've all felt unworthy. We've all felt disregarded, disrespected at some time in our life. So we've all had similar struggles. So we're not too different from anyone else.
Yeah.
As I say, it doesn't matter who you are. And that, uphill climb when life gets crazy and it feels overwhelming, we've all had those experiences. So the advice I offer in the book is to help all women everywhere. And there is something for everyone, because there are parts of the book that will resonate with people at the different stages in their life, the different ages, the different backgrounds. Parts of the book will resonate.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like it's good you have different broad sections where it's not like it just has to meet one person's view. You're making it so broad that a lot of people will be able to relate to different sections. And from what I've seen from your book, and I can't wait for it to get to release, when this podcast out will be tomorrow, won't it? It's the 12th of June.
12th of June, the book is launched on Amazon.
How exciting. And how has it been actually writing the book, dealing with it all? It must have been a lot compared to what you originally thought it was going to be like.
All consuming completely. I was, the thing is, I have ADHD, so it wasn't just I'd write a chapter or two, I would have to revisit that chapter, or another idea would come to me, or I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd be like completely, my mind was awash with more ideas, and I'd be doing voice notes in the middle of the night, and I'd wake up in the morning and think, did I do a voice note? And and I'd be yawning, and it was just an idea that had come to me, and I'd be dreaming in chapters, and it was literally, it took over my whole body.
That's crazy.
As I say. And I loved the writing process. Some nights I'd write through the night.
Wow.
All through the night, because
you were just motivated to
as well. Yes, but the thing is, ultimately I was more creative in the morning. But when I was under these strict time constraints, then I had to work. Like I'd be working 18 hours, 16 hours. People would say to me, can you come to my party? Can you come to my birthday? Can you come? I'd be saying, actually, I can't.
Yeah, you can't. You don't have that time.
I've got this deadline.
Yeah.
And I've written 10 books, by the way.
10?
But there's only,
did you have to merge them all together to just make one?
I had to keep plucking ideas, and then I'd change my mind, and then Christy would read it and say, oh, Mummy, you can't put that in, and I'd change that. And so I think, right, okay, I won't do that. I think on the 11th hour, I completely changed chapter 1, completely. And I had about a week to submit the whole manuscript, and I was still changing. Number 1 was my Achilles heel. I don't know why, it just caused me the most grief, I suppose, because I just thought, this is the chapter that people are going to read straight away. And I had to lay the foundations for the rest of the book, because the rest of the book all related to chapter 1. Even though I don't think chapter 1 is the most compelling, everything...
It's like sort of foreshadowing like the rest of the book, like what it relates back to.
Yeah. That's
really good though, but boy, that must have been tough. So congratulations, you've actually finished it. Like, this is so exciting. And so one of your chapters is about sort of going from this really glamorous life, this high-lived life with a lot of money, and then the marriage sort of failed and you ended up with just about £50 to your name. I can't even imagine that. Like, what sort of mindset did you have to help you survive and not just fall apart? Because that's such a hard situation to go through, going from all of that to nothing.
Well, I've always been obsessed with personal development and mastering your mindset and manifestation and meditate. I've been obsessed, and I've studied now as a coach, as a motivational coach, speaker, and NLP practitioner. And I was always fascinated. So I knew that I could change my life.
Mm-hmm.
I just never applied those methods to my life. So I'd kind of been living in this scarcity mindset, lack mindset. I was trapped in my old story of woe, and that was what was shaping my future. So I knew that something had to change, which meant I had to change if my life was going to change.
Yeah.
So I had to do something about it, and the only person that can do that, of course, is yourself, you know.
Sorry, before we actually get into this, I just realised I never actually asked for like a whole, not a deep one, but a whole brief description of what actually happened and then how you got to that lowest point.
So I was married for 19 years, and I have to say it was an amazing it was an amazing life, honestly, but there were parts of it that were very, very challenging, and where it started as a fairy tale, slowly but surely I started to have doubts, and I had trust issues, and then I started to blame myself because I didn't think I was good enough because of what was going on and everything. And so my self-esteem was slowly being chipped away at, to the point where, as I say in the book, I had the eating disorder bulimia, and that was all psychologically tied to my self-worth. So, but the thing is about that is, at the time I didn't know that. I didn't know that was what was going on. You know, trying to constantly be validated by my ex-husband, changing my hair, changing my appearance, my clothes. You know, I honestly I would have swung from the chandelier just to be noticed, and that's how it felt to me. Maybe it wasn't, but that's how it felt. So eventually, by the time I left the marriage, I was completely physically and mentally bankrupt. There was nothing left of me, you know. And I just thought, you know, I think there's more to life than this, despite the lifestyle. I kind of felt that I needed to save myself. And that's when I walked away.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that takes a lot of courage. And I just want to say that's so sad that you sort of, it started with trust issues and then you were reflecting on that on yourself, because I feel like that happens to a lot of women as well. You sort of, I mean, it also happens to men in relationships too, but I feel like most of the time it's women where they have the trust issues, they're trying to like change themselves to please their other half, and then it goes further down the line, which is so sad that we sort of go through things like that. But it's such a strong move for you personally to get to that point where you're like, do you know what, I'm not liking this, and you just knew it wasn't yourself and you couldn't keep yourself in that situation as much as you wanted to. You knew deep down it wasn't the right answer.
Yeah, exactly. I think I had tried, you know, everything in my marriage, and I can honestly say I can look myself in the mirror and I did everything I could to fix it. So therefore I became a fixer. So I wasn't looking after my own needs, because I was trying to fix the relationship. I was trying to fix my ex-husband in hope that he would see me. And it just didn't work. And I was caught up in this whirlwind of negative emotions. And when you're in that state, you can't see the wood for the trees. Therefore, there's no way out unless you walk away, and then you can start the healing process.
Yeah, unless you're the one making the changes.
Yeah.
So back to that where we were speaking about going from that life, then going down to that point you got to just literally having £50 to your name, and you were speaking about how you got through that. So when you made that mindset shift, what was your sort of actions to make that change, and how did you actually get yourself through that?
Do you know what I thought? Sod this for a game of soldiers. I mean, I just thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I accepted my plight in a way. But I thought, I've got to step up here. So I decided to do everything in my power to change that. Therefore, I just went on I just threw myself into gratitude and meditation and visualization and journaling. I just went absolutely that then consumed me. And I just thought, from everything that I knew, I thought, if I apply this to my life, let's just see
what's going to come out of it.
if what they, let's just see if it works, So I thought, I'm going to give it my best shot. And that's what I did.
Wow. And I guess you've got the 4 kids as well. I mean, not kids anymore. Georgie's youngest one, 25, same as me. But I guess they sort of like empowered you to get through it, like to sort of look out for them as well. And they must have played a big part in it.
Well, they were the reason I got out of bed in the morning,
Yeah.
And I think that, because we were all in it together, it just brought us closer. And my relationship with them, as you know, is absolutely amazing, and there is no conflict in our house. It's like they're all soulmates and everything gets handled in-house. But I will say, nothing gets past me. One of them normally...
They're going to be listening to this. They're going to be, why are you lying?
Well, yeah, I won't tell you who the main culprit for that is. But
I mean, I think we both know who that one is.
Yeah, but so we're a really tight, happy group, and it was because of them I pushed myself to look. I want to be the best role model for them, and I thought, I have to be strong here because I have a duty, not just as their mum, but they were navigating a difficult path too. So I certainly had to really, show up.
Let's change it all around.
Not just for myself, but for them.
Yeah,
really.
No, definitely. And you're speaking about sort of gratitude and manifesting, and I feel like sometimes it's not really spoken about enough. Like you hear it there and there, sort of just be grateful, do certain things. But what sort of advice would you give about manifesting, and how has it helped you, and how would you say manifesting actually works to get you through situations like this?
Well, I think manifestation is kind of put in a box, and it's. I think unless you really understand it, then it may not work for you because there are so many elements to manifestation. In fact, it's a whole realm of changing your perspective, changing your mindset, changing your energy, changing your words, changing your thoughts. It's just, it's a whole collective of elements that make for successful manifesting, and the biggest tip I would like to say to everyone is it's all to do with your energy, your vibration. And as we know, we live in a society, it's really hard, life is very difficult at times, messy, expensive, whatever, and everybody's going through their own challenges, but if you look at your life on a daily basis, I don't think people realise how much they're blocking their energy, with things like getting out of bed, looking at their phone, somebody sends them an email that ticks them off, and they're like, straight away, there's negativity, and then they stub their toe on the bed, or they can't find their car keys, and then they go to work, and there's a bit of road rage, or whatever, they get to work, and then their boss is on their back, and, all day long, there's this energy blocks, all day long, and it builds up. And it's about clearing that energy. And another big tip about manifesting is it's not about ticking off your wish list. It's about feeling those emotions of having what it is you want to manifest before you manifest. So feel happy now and then let the universe catch up. Because ultimately, it's not really the thing that you want, the soulmate or the house or the great job or the money. It's the emotion, it's the feeling it gives you.
Wow, yeah, that's so true, actually. I've never thought of it that way. And I think, like you say, it's the sort of, do you then tie visualization into that, like visualizing those sort of things?
You have to be a vibrational match for what it is you're trying to attract. So if you're trying to attract love, but you spend your whole day moaning, complaining, criticising, gossiping, you're not going to be a vibrational match for attracting love.
No, you're not.
Well, you might be, but then the type of relationships attract will be on that frequency. So therefore, it's more. I'm not saying you can't manifest. It's more difficult to manifest. But when you visualize, of course, you visualize your future self being in the job, sitting in the chair at your laptop, talking to the people around you. You literally almost become that person. You step into the shoes of that person, of already having what it is that you want to manifest.
And then I think it's when you're in that state of how good you feel, in that
Yes, the
visualization,
emotions.
that's when you should manifest, because that's when you're vibrating at a really high frequency, and that's when you should sort of give it out. Because I feel like people just don't, a lot of people sort of see all of this as like spiritual hippie stuff and just all wishful thinking. But like, what would you say to those who just think it's all hippie and wishful?
Give it a go. You know, consistency is key, and you know, it's like affirmations. It's the same there. You know, there's rules to affirmations too. It's not just about reading from a list. It's about, are they believable? Are they achievable? Are they in conflict with your limiting beliefs? And it's about repetition, because the brain learns through repetition. That's how your beliefs were formed in the first place. Therefore, to change a belief, you have to constantly repeat something different, something more empowering, to replace the old belief. But you know, how many people do you know that you know, you can do 10 affirmations in the morning, but throughout the day all the energy blockers or the energy stealers have completely cancelled those out. And you know, you've really got to believe. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and he said to me, how do you feel that belief though? I mean, what is, you know? And I said to him, you surrender that. You don't try and force or control that feeling. You surrender it to the universe. But what you do is you get yourself in a higher vibrational state through your actions, through your practices, through consistency and commitment. That is how you start to raise your vibrational state. And, you know, when you think about it, I often say to my clients, think of the last time you felt absolutely amazing and you were buzzing and you were flying and life was great. What were you doing? Who were you with? What activities were you doing? Then think to yourself, what has changed since then? Because life does get you down. Life is really hard. And sometimes it's easy. I know, you know, it's easier said than done. But I've been on the floor. I've been at the absolute point of complete despair and thinking that my life was just one big hot mess, including myself, of course. But to get out of that, you have to push through the pain. You have to get up, you have to push, you have to do something. You have to push, even when, you know, sometimes you wake up and you just think, ugh, I'm not feeling it today. Get up, make your bed, brush, do something. Because what happens is you start to build momentum through the day. Because once you do that one thing, you think, actually, that felt all right, you know, maybe, and then you go on to the next thing, and then you start, I've done it myself. I know when I'm feeling a little bit low, just because I do my job, just because I teach this, I have my off days, but I do know how to get back on the horse. And it's okay some days to go, actually, I'm not feeling it today, bugger it, I'm going to stay in bed and watch telly.
Yeah, I agree, because I think a lot of people think that positive people like yourself, they think you're feeling 100% every single day, Monday to Sunday. And it's not. It's just you have that ability and that strength to let yourself have a couple bad days, but you know how to rebuild it from those bad days. Where some people, they'll have the bad days consistently and they don't have that strength. They don't have the strength. They have that strength inside them. They have that inner leader and inner empowerment. They just aren't using it in the right way. But there is a difference between, you're not going to always feel 100% every single day.
No,
but like you said, you just have to sort of teach yourself by being consistent each day with these little tasks you're doing to give yourself that knowledge of how you can get out of those bad situations, which is so good, because at that time it all sort of went downhill for you. That must have just felt so horrendous, like you can't even describe it.
No, I would literally pull the covers over my head once the kids were at school and stay there. Really? And then just wallow in my self-pity, you know, because I felt so bad inside. And at the time, there wasn't one book, one person, there was nothing I feel at the time could have pulled me out of that dark place. But as time went on, you know, you've got to carry on. As women, where we don't realise our strength, but inside of us are all the answers. It's all there. You're born with, you know, you're inherently worthy and capable and strong and resilient. But that gets eroded over the course of time, through life, you know, when society, parents, whatever, when life happens to you, and you may have a bad experience. Therefore, you start to get into a space of low low self-esteem and negativity and self-doubt, all those things that happen to you, especially as young women, because society kind of, especially when I was younger, we were never told to go and follow our dreams, or it was get a job, get married, have kids. That's your
Yeah.
that's where you belong,
Yeah.
So it's I believe I broke the mold because I was always very, very ambitious, and and I was always very driven, but ultimately that's what got me through deep down. There was
that
inner
drive
strength.
you had.
Yeah, it just comes when you need it. And it is through the adversity and the hardships where you can start again. And sometimes you often find that suffering and struggling and strife is a blessing in disguise, because it pushes you, because you have to go forward, especially with 4 children in tow. You can't
sit there and do nothing.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
You've just got to roll your sleeves up. And I've always had that mentality anyway. It was a case of pushing forward, but I realised I couldn't stay in that negative place for forever. I knew I had to somehow break free of that if I was to change my life at all.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did.
Well, Bells, you should be so proud of yourself, because where you've come from that point to now, sitting here being an author of your own book, is absolutely incredible. Like, you should be so proud of yourself, because I think times we don't actually give ourselves that praise you would give to someone else about how well they've done. You've literally written your own book. That's actually...
I know. I can write. I love writing.
It's wild.
It's the technical side. I mean,
Yeah.
when I went up to... I've done masterminds and stuff and everything, and I sit in sometimes with all these people, entrepreneurs and everything, and I would just get massive imposter syndrome and think... But the thing is, if you look at the people that you mix with, they're either going to pull you up or they're going to pull you down. And as much as your internal environment is, your internal world is really important to get right, so is your outer environment, the people you mix with.
Yeah.
Especially the people that affect the way you think and feel, those people that drag you down. It's about checking that as much as you check what's going on inside.
Yeah, I think that's
which
such
is
a big...
important.
Yeah, there's such a big thing, because it's about that inner energy, but it's also about that energy you're literally surrounded by with everyone else around you. And that's why you hear a lot of things where they're like, cut people out of your life that don't serve you. And that can be hard, but sometimes you have to make that move. And you obviously made that move when you thought, I literally can't do this anymore.
Well, yes, but if you flip that on its head, the people I was mixing with in that classroom, the entrepreneurs, they were pulling me.
They were pulling you in the other
They were
direction.
pulling me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, imposter syndrome is very common in that world. But when you're with like-minded people who are striving for a better life, you want to do that too. People influence you in that world in ways that you don't really know, because sitting there feeling an imposter in that classroom, I still felt I was doing more for myself than I would be if I was sitting at home, and just, trying to work out on my own. It's always very important to get the help that you need, learn from the experts that have already made the mistakes. That's the point about that.
And do you feel like since writing this book, you've met you've met more people that bring you up in a good way around you? Like, have you networked a lot since writing this?
I haven't gone out. I haven't networked a lot. Funny enough, I was at a ladies' lunch last week, and I'm part of a female entrepreneur circle, and I hadn't been going to the lunches. And when I went last week, I was in London. I just thought, I've really missed this. And some of the women, oh my goodness, are just phenomenal. And I'm always so inspired. And it's true. Once when you're mixing with these people and they're talking about their businesses and what they've achieved, you do feel motivated, and that's what you want, really. When we're growing up, when we're young, we're teenagers, and we're all sitting around, everybody's gossiping, and it's you don't realise the damage that's doing. Gossip, erodes the soul. It's just so destructive. But back in the day, I mean, when I was a little girl, my mum and Nan used to discuss every single person going up and down that road, and they all had nicknames, and they would just go in the kitchen, make a cup of tea.
I feel like that is such an old generation thing, isn't it?
And they would gossip for hours and hours and hours. I grew up with that,
Yeah.
And but what you don't realise is it's just so negative. It's such negative energy.
Yeah.
And we've all done it. Let's be honest. But I
mean,
think
you'd be lying if you said you hadn't.
But when you become conscious of it, you do it less. Honestly, you do. When you become, because I think a lot of gossip stems from what's really going on inside you.
Yeah, I was literally about to say that. It's sort of coming, you're sort of
You're projecting.
loading. Yeah, you're projecting your sort of insecurities on other people
Of course.
to like make you feel better. And I feel like that's why a lot of people, like when you're in the eye, like if you're a celebrity or influencer, all the magazines or social media will put them down because they want to make themselves feel better, which is so sad. And like you must have dealt with that a lot when you were a WAG back in the day. Like that must have been hard to deal with, sort of having people judge you all the time.
Yeah, I knew people were discussing us and discussing me, and some of the comments at the school. But I think you do get a thicker skin. As a young woman, I used to try and please everybody and be nice to everybody. And I remember I worked at Danair. I was in Hawley, and one of my jobs, because I wanted to travel, so I thought I'll work for an airline and I'll get travel concessions. That's why I did that job, and I travelled a lot, and it was cheap travel as well. And I remember going into a dress shop up the road, and I used to buy a few bits, and the girls in there were so lovely, and I chat to them, and it was just I really enjoyed going in there. And then a couple of months later, I went to a clothes party. The owner of the shop, I'd never met her, but a friend of mine said, "Oh, she's having this clothes party at a shop in Hawley." I went, "Oh, that's nice. Oh yeah, I'd love to come along. I really like the shop." And when I met her, she said to me, "Just a word of advice. When you come in the shop and you go out the shop, those girls completely bitch about you." And I was
Shut up.
"Oh my God." And I was devastated. I was so devastated.
Horrible.
Yeah, I was just so nice to them, and I was just so devastated. And and there were different floors in that building, and the floor above us was all women. And I used to go up there to use the photocopier, and you could just feel the tension. It was just, but that's life, and you can't really be shielded from that. But I think the thing is to never take it personally. That's on them.
Yeah. And do you know what, Bells? You've got such a strong mindset. And do you think you sort of became stronger after everything went the wrong way, or do you think you were sort of bought?
I was
bought off the shelf. Well, I just thought it's so loud into that. Do you think you were born and brought up with that sort of strong mentality, or do you think this whole situation you've been through sort of gave you that push to build this strong mindset, or do you think it was like a combination of both?
It was because of my upbringing,
really,
that I was able to cope with the stresses of what happened after I walked out, because my mother also had we were homeless when I was younger, or we faced homelessness. My mother was, she had working two jobs just to make ends meet. It's like my life mirrored hers. And she was so strong. I come from a long line of strong women. My nan, Catherine Tate, the nan that was my nan, but she was fierce, my nan, and my
you
mum.
gave birth to 3 more strong women.
Oh yes. Well, I mean, I've always brought them up to be independent and not to rely on anybody else to make them happy. Go and earn their own money. Don't rely on anyone else to make you happy, because when they go or they disappear, that's all going to come tumbling down, and you're going to fall from a great height. You have to create your own happiness, your life choices, your decisions every single day, to show up, to nurture yourself, to talk kindly to yourself, to love yourself, to know your worth. And the more you practice that every day, that will trust me, because I know, because I've been there, I've done it. It does get stronger, and eventually you do get to the point where you're less tolerant of people that gossip, of things that happen, of people that let you down. You're less tolerant of that. Then you learn to set boundaries. Boundary setting is so powerful, because it's an act of self-love. Plus it lets people know what you will and you won't accept. So the more you build through your practices and through consistency, the stronger you become, the more confident you become. Every woman is worthy. They just don't know their value, because, life beats you down at times. But the question is, what if every woman knew her value? Can you imagine? Or knew her worth? Can you imagine how that is a huge problem.
This world would be amazing if every woman knew their value and their worth.
Yeah.
And when you speak about boundaries, what sort of, for example, if people don't really know what sort of boundaries set, what examples do you have of boundaries that you sort of put in your life to help you give yourself more self-love and get you through this whole sort of situation you've been through?
Well, that's quite an easy one to answer. Just saying no to things you don't want to do, and no to people. Because, you know, there was a huge people pleaser in me back in the day, and I'd say yes to everybody. I'd do everything for everyone else, but deep inside I'd be like simmering, like quietly resentment would be building, and I'd be simmering away inside. And I'd go and do everything for everyone, but I didn't have any time for myself because I couldn't say no, because I didn't want to upset that person. I was just a massive people pleaser. That's because I didn't want to disappoint, and I didn't want to be judged. And, you know, it's all to do with low self-worth. But eventually you do get to the point where you start evaluating what is serving you and what isn't, who is serving you and who isn't. Why make excuses when all you have to say is, I really can't make it that night. I'm really sorry, I just can't make it. So many people feel they have to make a big excuse, a big elaborate excuse to make it believable. But actually, if you strip it back, just be honest. And if they start saying no, you know, start berating you for not showing up or whatever, just have to stand your ground. And you know when you want to do something, when you don't want to do something. You know when you go out and you're doing something, the whole way through the day, you're like, why didn't I just say no? Why am I here? I could have been doing all that other stuff. All that admin,
you dread it so much.
all that paperwork. Not really, but anyway, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's just so simple to tell the truth, you know, and you don't have to make excuses for yourself.
You don't. No, you really don't. And what would you say your biggest sort of lesson you've learned from writing this book? Like, have you sort of found out you were a lot stronger than you thought you were by writing everything down in your story? I
think hiding behind a mask for so long, especially during my marriage, hiding emotions and not speaking up and not having a voice and playing small, all that, I feel that sometimes as women we carry the weight of all that throughout our lives, because I think women have been swimming against the tide for years in a predominantly male world, you know. So women have learned to play small. And I think when I first started writing the book, I was still, can't say that, I don't want to upset that, you know, I was still a little bit, you know, and then all of a sudden I thought, I'm going to have to rip the Band-Aid off here, and, you know, I'm really going to have to, be vulnerable, be honest, and be myself, because I think a couple of people that read the book for me have said it was like speaking to you, you know, so that took a while for that to evolve, that I've just got to not worry about what other people are going to think, say and do, and just
be yourself.
There are certain parts of the story where I had to be very respectful, and what I want the book to be is full of love, you know. I want it to be relatable, and I want it to really, when whoever is reading it puts it down, they have a sense of calm. I feel that I achieved that because from leaving my marriage, going through what I did, to building myself back up from the ground, I've learnt to be more accepting of myself and my situation, and I've learnt to forgive, which was one of the biggest things for me, was forgiving everybody and myself for always doubting myself and for not loving myself, you know. So I wanted to inject that in the book, so that when people have read it, I don't want people saying it's easy for her to stay because I'm now in this place. I wasn't always in this place. I've come from down there, you know. So what I learned was to open up more. And
I feel like that reflects like what you said then, when you said you felt like you couldn't sort of say certain things, or because you're worried about what people are going to think, and you said you ripped that Band-Aid off. I feel like that sort of reflects how you must have felt growing up as a WAG. You weren't allowed to say certain things, you weren't allowed to take certain actions, and it's so good you've actually got to that point now where you've written the book and you thought, do you know what, I'm actually just going to be myself. Like, you don't have to try and do it to please people, you don't have to do it to get people's approval. Like, it's great you've actually took that step and you're like, do you know what, I'm going to be me and just get your full self in that book, and people will be able to feel like they're literally talking to you while they're reading it.
Well, yes, of course, and that I want people to, you know, it to. I've read books and put them down, and I've taken the advice for a bit and I've run with it, but I want to continue this. I don't want it to just stop there. So I realised I had to be respectful of everybody concerned in the book, because there was a lot of my personal stories. It wasn't about, I think the thing is when you think about an ex-WAG's written a book or a WAG's written a book, there's a possibility you may think it's a kiss and tell. But this is the exact opposite of that. This is graceful and it's respectful to all parties, and it's the absolute opposite of that, because I have shed all of that, everything. I'm not that person, so therefore I don't walk around with that resentment and anger anymore. I feel lucky to be alive. I feel grateful. I feel happy. And I chose to be like that. I didn't want to stay stuck in that story, my old story of what happened then. And yes, I was for a number of years, and I kept regurgitating the same stories over and over until one day somebody said to me, stop living in your old story. And it all of a sudden a light bulb came on for me. Light bulb moment. I was like, oh my God, I do. People must be sick of me talking about this, because I know sometimes when there's a few of us that got divorced around at the same time, you'd sitting listening to the same things, and you are like, oh God,
talking over and over again.
Yeah. But I thought, actually, I'm doing it, and I have got to stop it. So I made a conscious effort that if I said anything about my ex-husband, it was positive.
Yeah, that's good though. Because you don't want to, like you say, you don't want to bring your past self up by sort of writing about it in a sort of negative way. I mean, it's hard to see a positive way to write about it, but that's very strong and respectful of yourself that you've done it in that way.
Well, I think that's the problem. People still live in the narrative of what's happened in the past, living in the past, all the stuff that's happened to them, and and the thing is, if you're carrying your past with you every day, talking about it, you're sucking the energy out of the present, and your power is in the present moment. Because if you're in the present moment, you're not in the past and you're not in the future. So therefore, your past isn't interfering in the now, so to speak. And that is a very powerful place to be. That's why meditation is so powerful.
Yeah, because it's that power of now. That book on as well.
It cuts out all the noise, and that's why some people have been meditating every day for years. And it's true. If you can get into meditation, and it does take a while to learn and practice, and you can never stop the outside noise, really, noises and thoughts. You just have to keep coming back to your breath, keep coming back to, actually in particular I like manifestation meditations, because then I can visualize.
Yeah, because don't you do Joe Dispenza? Is that who you do? Yes,
I do. I do Joe Dispenza, Louise Hay, in the main, because Louise Hay is my absolute.
Oh, yeah, she wrote that book. That book was amazing. The healing one.
You can heal yourself.
Yeah, and you actually gave me that book.
I did, yeah.
So Bells gave me this book. It was the sweetest thing ever, because obviously my story I went through. Bells gave me this book, and you wrote a whole paragraph letter in the front page, and I literally cried. I was like, that is just the sweetest thing ever, and it's such an amazing book.
Listen, you're so strong, you're so brave, you're so determined, and I have such admiration and respect for you. Absolutely amazing what you've done, and how you handled yourself, and your mindset was just on point. And I think that's why I wrote you into my book.
Oh yeah, Bells has written me in her book. I feel
Jen
famous.
has written into my book. Yeah, absolutely.
That is so amazing. I honestly can't thank you enough for that. That's actually
very inspirational what you did.
Wow.
And here we are now.
Yeah.
So.
Here we are because of you, not just because of me. This is your story that you've created, you've made. It's amazing. It's so amazing.
It's been I think as the book evolved, so did I. I did a lot of research as well, because when you're talking about personal development, as much as I had my own experiences and what I did, I had to make sure that I got it right, and it's certainly been a learning curve. I'm not sure I'd write another book.
I was going to say, you're going to write a whole series now.
No, I do have an idea. Talking about going forward, I actually, I do have another book in my mind, but I think what I want to do now is just get out there and just help as many, I just feel that...
Why don't you make a life series of your life? Get it on MTV.
Imagine. Well, you never know. I mean, my next project actually is, initially, I just wanted to get in there and help young WAGs because I didn't have... I had a therapist when I was going through my problems in my marriage, but the other side to it were the finances and how much, all that went up in smoke. And I'm as much to blame for that, and but you're not taught that. Being a WAG doesn't come with a rule book. There's so many elements to it. The spotlight, the scrutiny, the infidelity, dare I say it, but it is covered widely in the media. There are so many challenges, but they feel like, I should be grateful for this lifestyle. I can't possibly complain. If I complain, and I feel their pet. Not all women, not all WAGs go through that, by the way, and I've made that very clear. But I think there's a lot of it, more than people know, and I just want to help them.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you wish when you were sort of that age going through it, do you wish you had someone like you, whose book you could read to make you feel like you weren't alone in that situation?
I wish I'd had. My mum used to give me advice, but it was my mum.
Yeah.
Okay, mum.
But it's hard when you can't actually relate to the actual situation you're in.
Yeah, no, but I mean, walking in their shoes, and I know what it's like. I've lived it, and I know, and the mistakes that I made, I want to, it's like prevention is better than cure. If I can just get in there and just educate them. I mean, some of these women are very successful women in their own right, but I still think that underneath it all, they still need that support, that guidance, that mentorship. And I don't think there is anybody there. I mean, yes, they can go to therapists and they can go. But my next project,
go on,
is to create an exclusive WAGs club to provide a community and support, empowerment, where I will have speakers come in and talk about anything from interior design to skincare to financial, literacy, and just that they feel safe. I mean, obviously, I don't expect them to talk about what's going on in their private life. If they want to coach with me, that's different. But it's a case of sometimes there's a lot of isolation and they may feel lonely because when they've moved from the north to the south, for example,
they've got no one
they're
around
on their
them.
own.
Yeah.
There's no, their families are all up north, their friends are all up north, and they're completely on their own. Where do they go when they first come to a place they've never been to? So I want to provide this community for them and build it. I know it might take a while to build because the trust in that industry is maybe an issue for some because, especially with what happened between Wagatha, Colleen Rooney and Rebecca Vardy. There's
a lot, yeah.
So, but I think slowly but surely, my aim is to really help them, and I know I can make a difference because there wasn't much I didn't experience in that world.
Yeah,
so.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
I think it's so great you've got that sort of mindset where I think with the book you said it like will reach out different people, you want to help different women, but I think it's good that you're also then narrowing it down, like you said, your future ideas, to just narrow it down to the women that are in the current position that you were once in and how you can sort of help them with the help you would have wanted back in the day. And I think that's so amazing. Like you should be so grateful you have this mindset of like you literally just finished a book and you're already on to the next thing about how you can help even more. Like it's so nice that you're willing to help people so much to make them feel better. Like that's such a great trait to have. You are such an amazing woman, honestly.
Thank you so much.
You really are.
Thank you.
But honestly, Belle, this has been such a lovely episode, and I feel like people are going to be very intrigued to read the whole book because that will just be even more than what we've revealed in this. And it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to read it myself. So at the end of each episode, I sort of ask the guests to give a basic task that any of the listeners can do to make them feel good this week. Okay. Do you have any sort of recommendations that you would give?
Yeah, I think it's easy to feel low and down when we get up. We have our off days. But if you want to have if you want to boost your mood, I would say go and do something nice for somebody else. Think of somebody that would love to see you. Take them a bunch of flowers, a box of chocolates, a nice card, give them a call, show up for someone else. Because when you're doing nice deeds and good deeds for other people, and you're giving with, not to receive something, but just to make that person smile, that gives you those happy vibes, and that's contagious, and it is an instant mood booster. So if you're just sitting there thinking, oh, woe is me, I'm having a crap day, I know, I'm going to go and do something nice, do something good for somebody else.
Yeah.
And put your mind to that and making somebody else happy, because when you make somebody else happy, it has a knock-on effect.
It's like a butterfly. That's so true, actually, isn't it? It's like, even if you're just smiling at someone, or you randomly compliment someone and then you can see it makes them really happy, it makes you feel happy inside. Like, it's such a reflection of how you want to feel. You do that to someone to make them feel like that, and then it will just come back to you. That's such a great task. I love that. That's really good. And also, the last part of it, your song that made you feel good, and I know. I know what Bells is going to say every single time we've been out, or it was at your 60th, wasn't it? That was your song. But anyway, you reveal it, this song that makes you feel good.
Katy Perry, Firework.
What a banger.
It's just such a feel-good song.
It is.
I do put it on my kitchen and I jump up and down and all that, when I'm on my own.
It's such a good song. Is it your ringtone when people ring you?
No, it's not such. Oh my God, that's a good idea. Right.
Or your alarm in the morning, you'd be out of bed, you'd be like, you get up straight away.
Of course. Well, that's what, change it up. Change up your morning routine to make you feel better when you open your eyes. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, Bells, baby, you are a firework. I'm going to feel so sick when I hear it.
Brilliant. I don't know when this is going to be actually live.
So this is going to be launched on so your book's been released on the
12th of June.
So this is going to be released on the 11th, so the day before. So anyone's little earbuds room right now, the book's out tomorrow. Or if you're listening after, the book was out on the 12th
of June.
12th of June. So yeah. Honestly, Bells, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the resilience you've had, the mindset you've had to build yourself up from the bottom. But not only that, the fact you've taken this action to help other people as well. And you're just an all-round, incredible, amazing woman. I look up to you so much. You are such an inspiration.
Thank you so much. That means so much.
You really are such an inspiration. And I'm sure to everyone that knows you as well, no one has one bad word to say about you. You are such an amazing woman.
Yeah.
Oh, but honestly, everyone, I've not even read it, but I know it's going to be amazing. This book will make you feel good. It'll make you get through your own sort of personal challenges, and it will teach you how you can rebuild your life and strengthen yourself and not just fall to the ground. So thank you so much, Bells, for coming on. It's been lovely.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've enjoyed every moment.
Oh, so have I. So thank you everyone for listening, and I will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.